Hello, and welcome to Homebrew Heresy, where we bring your heretical ideas to life, taking all your favorite factions and characters and bringing them to life in 40k. This episode is one that really excited me. I've been a fan of Power Rangers since I was a kid, watching almost every single season. There only ever watched 5 or 6 of them all the way through, with my favorites being Dino Thunder, SPD, and Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. If you guys watch any of those 3, feel free to let me know in the comments. I really want to know I'm not the only one who loves this series. Also, here's a fun fact. I actually stopped writing the script twice because I got caught up listening to all of Power Rangers intro. So before I start jamming out all the Power Rangers intros again, let's get to the actual video. Let's begin by covering the origins and history of the Power Rangers. And if you thought this series was just about 5 teenagers with attitude, you're very wrong. The story of Power Rangers begins with the Morphin Masters, the uncontested masters of the Morphin grid. Yes, for real. The Morphing Masters studied and protected the Morphin grid and used the power contained within this extra-dimensional realm of energy to create the first Power Rangers. Eventually, however, this group would fade into legend and myth, with the secrets of their abilities, the power coins, being lost. It was this legend, however, that would inspire Zordon, a great warrior from the planet Eldar, to not only dedicate his near-immortal life to the defeat of evil, but to finding and protecting these coins from those who would seek to abuse their power. Alongside his fellow Guardians, Zordon would battle some of the greatest and most dangerous forces in the entire universe. Among such forces were the terrible Lord Zed, the former mentor to Zordon and the once renowned Eldarian warrior, now turned to the side of evil. It was in this struggle that Zordon would find himself becoming disillusioned with his purpose, as with every passing battle, more and more of his fellow Guardians would lose their lives, and the planets would fall to Zed and his armies. What's worse, Zed would form an alliance with the insane Master Vile, a deranged madman and devoted worshipper of the godlike Dark Spectre, offering Zed his own daughter, the powerful sorceress Rita Repulsa, to assist in his conquest of the Milky Way galaxy. Now, if having to fight another powerful enemy wasn't bad enough, imagine the trauma of that same enemy being the same child you once swore to defend. Cause a not so fun fact, turns out Rita Repulsa, you know that witch from the dumpster, was actually the daughter of one of Zordon's oldest friends. Stolen by her father after he was driven insane by visions of the future and what his daughter would become. It was this madness that actually drove him to make these visions a reality. Eventually, after thousands of years of endless war, Zordon would manage to recover 5 out of the 6 lost power coins alongside their associated Zords. However, before Zordon could recover the 6th and final power coin, it was stolen by Rita and her minions, alongside the powerful Dragon Zord. Luckily, before Rita could take advantage of her new weapons, Zordon would manage to defeat her. Though even in spite of her evil deeds and out of the love for her and her mother, Zordon could not find it in himself to kill her. Instead, he chose to banish Rita to a far-off moon. In return for this act of mercy, however, Rita would, as a last screw you, put a spell on Zordon, and scatter his existence across time and space. This is why Zordon's a floating head in the show, by the way. That tube is literally the only thing anchoring his existence to this point in time. Here's another not-so-fun fact. That time the Green Ranger destroyed the tube, Zordon was actually transported to another timeline where the Green Ranger not only killed him, but all the other Power Rangers as well, and ended up becoming a tyrant. That's Lord Dracon's storyline, by the way. After being scattered across time and having existence trapped within a tube, Zordon would prepare for the inevitable return of Rita. Or worse, the master who awaited her progress on the conquest of Earth. Eventually that moment would arise, and Zordon would select the very first Power Rangers. And contrary to what you might assume, the first group wasn't a group of teenagers. Instead, they were made up of the bravest, smartest, and most skill diverse population. And hilariously, they would almost all die, failing to work together because of their pre-existing biases and personalities. In the end, only 2 out of the 5 would survive, and if I remember correctly, they were so traumatized by this event they created the Power Rangers equivalent to S.H.I.E.L.D. So to say Power Rangers lore gets pretty dark and pretty deep is a bit of an understatement. Regardless of that minor setback, Zordon would take what he learned from this tragedy when it came to choosing the next generation of Power Rangers. This is the explanation for why he needed teenagers with attitude and an already existing connection. It kinda makes Zordon sound a little bit evil though, because he was basically choosing children because they were easier to mold and mentor into the perfect soldier. But to be honest, given everything, it's impressive Zordon hasn't turned full on evil yet. Hell, it didn't even take half that level of trauma to make Zorfim turn into Lord Zed. So then, rather than recapping every episode of Mighty Morphin, let's keep it brief. The Rangers face the forces of Rita Repulsa after she is released from her prison on the moon. Over the course of this series, the Rangers grow in power and skill, defeating her numerous minions and monsters. Though, interestingly, something a lot of people forget, the Power Rangers actually lose in the end, with Zordon's tube and the command base itself being destroyed, alongside the Rangers actually losing their powers. Yeah, for real, they actually lose. That's the whole reason why they have the Zero series continuation. The Power Rangers literally lose their powers and have to resort to using the Zeo Crystal to get them back. So then, with that out of the way, let's get to covering their weapons, armor, and abilities. First off, the Power Rangers all possess superhuman abilities from enhanced strength, speed, and durability. Next up are the unique weapons each Ranger has access to. Known as power weapons, funnily enough, each one is an incredibly potent and deadly weapon. Alongside the power weapons, however, the Rangers also have access to probably the most well-known part of the Power Rangers universe, the Zords. The Zords are semi-sentient mechanical creatures that are said to each be as old as the Power Coins, and just as important to the arsenal of the Power Rangers. What's more, the Zords, while powerful on their own, are able to merge together to create a far larger and more powerful Mega Zord. Piloted by the Rangers, this building-sized warwalker is able to destroy entire cities with ease and take on the greatest of Rita Repulsa's armies. Though one major weakness with the Zords is that if they are ever destroyed, their connection to the Power Coins will not only break, but see the Rangers losing access to their abilities. And finally, the most invaluable tool the Rangers have access to is none other than Zordon himself. This 10,000-year-old warrior, wizard, general, and mentor serves as the voice of reason and leader to the Power Rangers, providing them with everything they need to succeed against the forces of evil. Additionally, thanks to Zordon and his assistant Alpha 5, the Power Rangers can actually teleport vast essences and on one occasion, even travel through time. And with all that, I think we've covered everything we need to know about the Power Rangers' weapons, armors, and abilities. So then, let's get to covering the goals of this homebrew. First off, our faction needs access to the Morphin grid, some kind of power source that allows our units to distinguish themselves from the more standard and mortal members of our faction. In other words, we basically need a power-up that makes us a bit better at fighting the forces of evil. Secondly, our lore should reflect the teenagers with attitude aspect. I think having some sort of coming-of-age ritual or having some kind of age-based rite of passage will be really important. And given a lot of other factions choose to throw their soldiers into the meat grinder of war as soon as they reach adulthood, this should be easy for us. Lastly, for our third goal, we're going to be looking at having access to the most insane weapons and Zords Power Rangers can wield in battle. So we got to have a wide range of weapons and unit sizes to help us reflect that. So then, with all our lore, equipment, and goals out of the way, we got to start by figuring out the faction in question we'll be using for this homebrew. For some quick honorable mentions, we got the poster boys of Warhammer, the Space Marines. Their wide range of units, alongside their war of recruiting young boys to join their ranks, ties well into the two goals of this homebrew. Unfortunately, the Space Marines lack a wide range of units of varying sizes, with one of the few exceptions being the tanks and transports. If we were building the Turbo Rangers or the RPM Rangers, then I wouldn't raise too many issues. However, given our use of the more animalistic Dinozords, having something able to reflect the sentience and personality should be important, so using vehicles as a stand-in just doesn't feel right. Plus, they don't have any units to stand in for a Megazord, so we aren't going to be using the Space Marines for this homebrew. Second on our list of honorable homebrews, we got, shocking everybody, the Tau. Their crisis suits can function as a decent stand-in for the Rangers' uniforms, as well as creating the distinction between the more standard members of our faction and the more elite units. Combining that with the merit-based eugenics system the Tau use, instead of joining the military at a certain age, all Tau are born into it. So that covers the coming-of-age ritual part of our lore. What about our Zords? Well, again, the Tau make use of crisis suits of varying sizes and purposes, so each one could act as a different stand-in for one of the Zords used by the Rangers. There are a few minor issues, however, and those being the Tau lack a Morphin grid, or some sort of equivalent. Additionally, the Tau are also a fairly young race, only about 6,000 years old, which means they could not have access to an ancient, almost godlike being such as Zordon to mentor them. Though, we might want to look at either Tau-Va or the Ethereals for more information, because those guys are definitely hiding something. Additionally, the Tau also have very dull souls, so if we're going to argue that the warp could be the closest thing to the Morphin grid we could use, that's also another point against the Fish Boys. So then, onto the faction I chose for this homebrew, the Eldari. First off, the design of their units. With many of them being far less armored than others, this can actually reflect the spandex and tights of the Power Rangers. Not to mention the unique colors, weapons, and fighting styles of the Aspect Warriors could reflect the overall design of the Rangers pretty well. And if we're talking about Zords, while they don't possess the Knights of the Imperium, the Eldar do possess the massive Wraith Knight, while not only possessing a personality contained within the Spirit Stone, do also come with a pilot. And finally, the Morphin grid, based to the warp if it was an overall benevolent force instead of an outright evil one. So that's another point in favor of the Eldar. So with that out of the way, we're going to switch up the way we do this video. Today we're starting with the buying list and moving the story time to a bit later. So if you want to hear the lore I have for this Craftworld, make sure to watch it till the end. Starting off, we gotta look at what units in the Eldar range we could use as stand-ins for the Power Rangers. First off, the basic Guardians could work as a stand-in for the Rangers in their civilian forms. And given the fact that the Rangers don't lose any of their combat ability while in civilian form, this isn't a bad choice for our homebrew. Next up, any of the Aspect Warriors could create stand-ins for the individual Rangers themselves. For example, the Striking Scorpion's aggressive combat style and use of chain weapons alongside their armor could allow them to act as stand-ins for the GOAT himself, Tommy Oliver, otherwise known as the Green Ranger. Alongside them, the Dire Avengers could, despite their more advanced and elite version of the Santa Guardians, reflect the original Red Ranger, Jason Scott, who was a prototypical Red Ranger and the inspiration for all others to come after him. Then, of course, as I mentioned before, we have the Wraith Lord and Wraith Knights, which could act as stand-ins for the Zord and Megazords respectively. So then, now that I've covered some of the potential build options we have for the Eldar range and the Power Rangers, let's get to what you should buy to make this homebrew come to life on the tabletop. As always, we'll be aiming for the 500 point mark to make sure collecting this army is fast and affordable. So as usual, when I'm deciding what box to buy for these homebrews, I like to start by looking at the combat patrol of the army. And honestly, the box set for the Eldar isn't too bad when it comes to giving us a good baseline for what we need. That exception being the Wind Rider units. While these could reflect the Rangers on the motorcycles, the main issue lies in the fact that the Rangers actually only get access to the motorcycles partway through the second season, making them a rarity already. On top of that, given the fact that most people identify the Power Rangers with flashy uses of martial arts, committing a whole half of your army to being mounted doesn't quite fit with that fantasy, if you ask me. So then, outside of them, what would I use the other units in this box as proxies for? Well, first off, I knew I wanted a Zord when it came to starting this army. And given the very personal nature and strength alongside the size of the Wraith Lord, it was the obvious choice. Secondly, the Guardian units could make a great option for our standard infantry unit, as well as acting as a stand-in for our Ranger civilian forms, as I mentioned before. Though interestingly enough, I think it could also fit as a possible stand-in for the Rangers when they're using the Power Blaster, the massive amalgamation weapon created by using all of their signature weapons into one. For this, I would suggest building the heavy weapons platform as the Bright Lance variant to maximize punching power and damage. Thirdly, the Farseer. While a decent unit in and of itself, choosing a character for them to represent was a bit difficult at first. Initially, I thought they could have been a stand-in for Tommy Oliver, with the Witchblade acting as a Dragon Dagger or perhaps even a reformed alternate universe Rita Repulsa. However, I think the best use of our Farseer model is none other than a mortal Zordon. During Zordon's early life, he was not just a great warrior, but a powerful wizard. And interestingly enough, his weapon of choice during his time as a mortal warrior was none other than a Power Spear. And of course, the final nail in the coffin is the fact that the Farseer's rules and leadership abilities best support the standard Guardian unit, just like how Zordon acts as a leader and mentor to the Rangers. So with the majority of our combat patrol basically figured out and the Wind Riders shelved, we got room for more units. However, given the fact that we still need some Aspect Warriors to fully sell the Ranger identity, mostly through the special color coordinated uniforms, let's see which one best fits with what we're looking for. Personally, I think the Striking Scorpion's proficiency for melee combat, infiltrator abilities, and high amount of damage possible makes him a really good fit for the Rangers themselves, even if the whole Predator look does make them a little bit harder to distinguish from the good guys. To get them in your army, I would highly suggest buying the Blades of Cain Kill Team. This box comes with 10 Striking Scorpions instead of the usual 5 you get in another box, and this box is worth 130 points for about $80. Now, if we decide to include this unit, this actually jumps our total point value from 325 to 455, meaning we're based at the 500 point mark, especially if you look at the enhancements available for our sub-faction. In this case, the Unparalleled Foresight detachment grants us the Phoenix Gem enhancement. With this, our Zordon model can, upon being destroyed, actually be revived with his full wounds restored. Not to mention, this enhancement also adds an extra 35 points to our total, bringing us even closer to that 500 point threshold. Now then, with all our models and rules figured out, let's get to writing our lore.
Craftworld Zeo Eltar is notable among the world ships of the Asteriani.
A deeply traditionalist and militaristic craft world, the practices of Zeo Eldar are known to unsettle many of the less warrior-like Eldari. Eldari are expected to, upon reaching adulthood, select one of the many aspect shrines which decorate their craft world. Here, they will forge their inherent attitude and strong will into relentless determination. Together with their wide collection of military forces combined with the wisdom gleaned from the Craftworld's Infinity Circuit, the elite forces of Zeo Eldar have secured countless victories. One unique idiosyncrasy of the Craftworld is the Eldari's unique method of utilizing their forces. That being in the form of the 5 Swords formation, an ancient Eldari war form which combines multiple styles of swordsmanship into one devastating technique. In the case of the Craftworld, however, the aspect warriors from across multiple shrines will find themselves summoned by the Infinity Circuit itself. Together, these conflicting forces and personalities will be tasked with combining their unique talents to bring down a seemingly impossible foe. It is through the specific use of these formations that Zeo Eldar has earned a reputation for achieving the impossible. Additionally, a unique relic among the arsenal of Zeo Eldar is a dangerous and seemingly unstoppable Dragon Lord. The Dragon Lord is a powerful Wraith Knight of unparalleled skill and fortitude. It is unknown where this weapon originated. What is known, however, is that the Dragon Lord possesses the unique ability to permit anyone to pilot it, regardless of their bloodline or relationship to the Spirit Stone inside. In fact, it is believed that the Spirit Stone inside is not actually a doomed Eldar soul, but actually a fragment of the war god Cain himself. As a result, the use of this massive warframe is known to put an intense strain on the pilot's body, actually shredding their soul with use. Because of this, the Wraith Knight is rarely summoned onto the battlefield for risk of the damage it could cause to the pilot's own well-being. Additionally, because of its sustained difficulty to pilot, only the greatest of Eldar are permitted to do so, particularly the Autarchs and Exarchs of the Craft World. And there we have it. Craftworld Zeo Eldar, the craft world that is inspired by the Power Rangers of the mighty Morphin season. I really hope you guys enjoyed this homebrew. I know I had a lot of fun writing it, that's for sure. I got to rewatch one of my favorite series of Power Rangers, jam into the music, and write lore for it using one of my favorite factions. I am a really big fan of the Eldar, if I'm going to be honest. Additionally, I do want to make a final announcement, and that being an apology. Sorry for not uploading recently. I've been recovering from a throat infection alongside Christmas and New Year's, putting an intense strain on my recording ability. So if you guys watch this video all the way to the end, thank you, I really appreciate it. And if you guys really want to see this channel grow and see me succeed, why not watch another one of my videos? Maybe create your own little crossover battle between the Power Rangers and another faction on this channel. But otherwise, I've got nothing else to say, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Bye.